Narayana Hrudayam Stotram is unique in that it is coupled with another stotram, that is Lakshmi Hrudayam, to form a pair. They are found in Atharvarahasyam. They were given out by sage Bhargava. They belong to the category of stotram. The appellation stotram, stuti, and stavam all describe a hymn only. Stavaha stotram nutihi stutihi, says Amara, the Sanskrit lexicon. They all narrate the qualities of a deity. Guna Sankirtanam is stotram, says Sri Shankaracharya in his commentary to Vishnu Sahasranamam. The Lord in his true form is described in the scriptures as having no attributes or qualities such as name, form, or qualities. Yattad adreshyam agrahyam agotram avarnam chakshushrotram tadapani padam nityam vibhum sarvagatam susukshmam tadavyayam yadbhuta yonim paripashyanti dhiraha in Manduka Upanishad. But since such a God will be impossible for a devotee to comprehend and relate with, the scriptures say that the Lord is also available with names and forms. This makes it easy for a devotee to worship him. The kindly Lord accepts this kind of worship also. Customarily, a stotram describes a hymn that is ancient. It is generally found in Vedas, Puranas, or Itihasas such as Ramayana and Mahabharata. Thus, we call Vishnu Sahasranama and Lalita Sahasranama as stotras. So also we call Aditya Hrudayam as stotram. They were narrated by some sage, but the sage himself is not the author. He had heard it or got from someone else. Thus, the origin is not known and is lost in antiquity. Generally, the sage who narrates it says something about its glory in the beginning. He also appends a list of benefits one will get by reciting it or using it in some specific manner, as in a sacrifice or homa. This is known as phalashruti. Thus, we find these parts or components in these two stotras, Narayana Hrudayam and Lakshmi Hrudayam. But some hymns composed by great acharyas or saints later on, that were outpourings of intense devotion, also carry the appellation stotram. The popular Kanakadhara Stotram by Sri Shankaracharya and Hayagriva Stotram by Sri Vedanta Deshika are examples of this kind. But the borderline has become grey, with the result that nowadays any hymn is being called a stotram. Let us briefly discuss as to why we should listen to or recite stotras. Our scriptures repeatedly state that the birth as a human being is very rare and so immensely valuable. Rarer still are the desire for liberation and association of noble souls. They urge us to appreciate the fact and make best use of our birth as humans. Durlabham trayam evaihi etad devanugraha hetukam manushyattvam mumukshutvam mahapurusha samshrayaha. Viveka Chudamani. The reason for saying that a human birth is great should be obvious. Animals may be stronger, faster, and have capabilities such as very acute hearing, keen eyesight, etc., which we do not possess. Still, we claim to be superior to them because we humans are endowed with the power of reasoning and common sense. With these gifts, we can plan our future intelligently, set goals, and do all that is needed to attain the goals. Our scriptures say that if, after being born as a human being, one fails to exploit these gifts properly and achieve the goals, then that person is no different from an animal. Ahara, Nidra, Bhaya, Mukhyakani, Samanyam etat Pashibhir Naranam, Buddhirhi Tesham, Adhiko Vishesho, Buddha Vihinaha, Pashubhihi Samanaha. The goals may vary from one person to another and so can be numerous. But our sages have analyzed these numerous goals and divided them into four categories. They are dharma, artha or material acquisitions like wealth, house, family, etc. Kama or sense pleasures that wealth and other material acquisitions mentioned earlier can provide, and finally moksha or liberation. These are known as purusharthaha since they are sought after by people. Arthaha is goal. Performing actions as prescribed by our scriptures is called dharma. One who wants to move up the spiritual path is enjoined to follow the injunctions, though they may superficially appear to be illogical or inconvenient. Going against them is termed as a sinful act and will lead to one's downfall. Krishna states this clearly in Bhagavad Gita. Yash Shastra Vidhim Utsrijya Vartate Kamakarataha Nasa Siddhimapnoti Nasukham Param Gatim Tasmaschatram Pramanam Te Karya Karya Vyavasthitau Jnatva Shastra Vidhanoktam Karma Karthum Iharhasi. We need wealth and other material comforts to enable us to lead a worry-free life. Besides, money is required to perform religious duties like going on pilgrimages, pujas, charity, etc. So, seeking wealth per se is not evil. Kalidasa, in his famous poem Raghuvamsham, says that the kings of the dynasty of Raghu amassed wealth for giving away to the needy and worthy, and not for enriching themselves. Yagaya Sambhratarthanam. Working to acquire wealth and saving for rainy day are recommended. It is not decried as long as the means by which the wealth is obtained is legal and does not involve injury or harm to others. Our scriptures allows one to enjoy the benefits of artha or wealth earned. They include house, family, friends, etc. But as said in the case of artha above, the enjoyments sought and indulged in should not be illegal or against the dictates of the Shastras. They should not be such that will lead to attachments and moral degradation. Having desire is natural and is allowed. In fact, Krishna says that he is behind such proper desires in all beings. Dharma viruddha bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshapha in Bhagavad Gita. Our scriptures talk of special prayers and rituals by which one can obtain immense riches and pleasures, including life among gods in the heavens and even the highest world, that of the Creator Brahma. This shows that they allow us to entertain desires as long as they are proper as said above. But attachment binds and so is dangerous. Our scriptures warn us to be wary of developing attachment to money, property, relations, people, etc. Moksha or liberation means liberation from rebirth. It is to be noted that our scriptures do not consider the first three goals as real goals at all. The logic is all actions produce results. If one does actions that are dharmic, he gets the fruit of the actions in the form of merit or punyam. If one acts contrary to dharma, he gets the results in the form of sins or papam. One enjoys these results in this birth, or one may have to be born again once or many times for the purpose. The fruits of punyam may be a better and more comfortable birth in this world or higher worlds. The results of adharmic actions may be inferior births as animals and plants, or a human birth full of sufferings and misery in the form of sickness, etc. Thus, one gets entangled in the cycle of repeated births and deaths. Krishna points out that even if one gets a place in the heavens, he should remember that the place is got as a reward for his good deeds. As soon as the stock of punyam is exhausted, he will necessarily have to come down to this world and rejoin the cycle of birth and death. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita. Te tam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam kshine punye martyaloke vishanti. Evam traidharmam anuprapanna gatagatam kama kama labhante. This is awful. So, our scriptures do not consider the three goals as commonly understood as real goals. Only liberation or moksha is said to be the real goal, since after attaining moksha, one escapes the agony of samsara. Therefore, it is known as the supreme goal or parama purushartha. Samsara implies being born, growing up, going through ups and downs of life, growing old and dying only to be born again. Liberation is freedom forever. So it becomes the duty of every intelligent person to work for liberation and not keep on wallowing in samsara. Keeping the above facts in mind, the scriptures define the purpose of the goals in a very different manner. They ask us to use these three goals for achieving spiritual progress in order to escape samsara. One should do dharma to earn wealth, which should be used to earn religious merit and not for enjoying sensuous pleasures. The goals of dharma should be kept as spiritual progress. The aim of kama should not be taken as enjoying sense pleasures, but should just be keeping the body and soul together. The aim of keeping the body and soul together should be to strive and learn about the way to liberation and not strive to attain transient pleasures like enjoyment in heaven, etc. धर्मस्य ह्यापवर्गस्य नार्थोत्थायोपकल्पते नार्थस्य धर्मेकान्तस्य कामो लाभाय हि स्मृतः कामस्य नेन्द्रिये पीतिर्लाभो जीवेत यावता जीवस्य तत्त्वजिज्ञासा नार्थो यच्छेह कर्मभिः in Srimad Bhagavatam. The devotees of Lord were very clear about the above facts. For example, Kulashekara declares that he is not interested in the three goals, dharma, artha and kama. He says that let events, good or bad, happen according to karmas he had done. He prays to the Lord to grant him unwavering devotion to his lotus-like feet in this and in future births. In Mukundamala, Nastha dharme na vasunichaye naiva kamopabhoge yadyad bhavyam bhavatu bhagavan purvakarmanurupam etat prarthyam mama bahumatam janma janmantarepi tvatpadambhoruha yugagata nischala bhaktirastu. Liberation, as said earlier, means liberation from cyclic birth. It is spoken as attaining the lotus feet of the Lord in the Puranas. According to Upanishads, liberation means dropping one's identification with the body or mind complex and realizing his or her divine nature. The scriptures assert that one is distinct from the body and mind complex and is indeed divine in nature and so is not subject to sorrows and rebirth. The wrong identification with body or mind complex is due to wrong knowledge or nescience known as ajnanam. Thus, liberation implies settling down in our true and real nature, which is divine, and thus be free from problems forever afterwards. Tarati shokamatmavit, says the Upanishad. Because of this reason, Krishna says that there is no gain greater than this in Bhagavad Gita. Yam labdhva chaparam labham manyate nadikam tataha yasmin sthito na dhukkena gurunapi vichalyate. For this reason, liberation does indeed sound immensely attractive. But the sad truth is that it has very few takers. Only a minuscule minority is interested in seeking liberation. Krishna ruefully says this in Bhagavad Gita. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye. Yama, the Lord of Death, also bemoans the fact and says that the dullards are attracted by sense pleasures and so choose the path of mundane prosperity, but the wise choose the path of liberation. In Katha Upanishad, Shreyascha Preyascha Manushyametastau Samparitya Vivinakti Dhiraha Shreyohi Dhirobhi Preyase Vrinite Preyo Mando Yogakshemat Vrinite. Wrong knowledge can be righted only by right knowledge called jnanam. Just like darkness can be removed only by bringing in light. The way to gain jnanam is described in a very systematic manner in our scriptures. However, our scriptures never tire of warning that the path to gain wisdom is extremely difficult. The wise men say it as difficult as walking on a razor's edge, said Yama to his disciple Nachiketas. Kshurasya dhara nishita duratyaya durgam pathasthat kavayo vadanti. Katha Upanishad. Krishna too says this. Avyakta hi gatirdhukkam dehavadbhi ravapyate in Bhagavad Gita. The reason that this path is very difficult for most people is that their minds are sullied by negative qualities like desires, anger, attachments, jealousy, etc. These qualities cloud the intellect and often distort judgment. Impelled by anger or greed, one may turn selfish and indulge in illegal or immoral acts. Our scriptures declare that people who have such weaknesses will always be distracted and so cannot comprehend the subtle spiritual wisdom. Even after hearing about liberation repeatedly, their minds will not be excited enough to take a step in that direction. This is very, very unfortunate. Na virato duscharitan nashanto nasamahitaha nashanta manaso vapi prajnanainai namapniyat in Katha Upanishad. So it is said that one with desire for liberation, known as mumukshatvam, is a rare phenomenon. The first thing to do for those who desire liberation is to purge the mind of such distracting traits and steady it. This is achieved by regular performance of prescribed karma or duties. However, we saw earlier that karmas produce results and lead to rebirth. The way to escape the results is to blend karma with devotion or bhakti. One continues to engage himself in all regular activities but escapes the results by offering the results to the Lord. The results, having been offered to God, will not attach to the performer of the action. Krishna says this in Bhagavad Gita, Yat karoshi yadashnasi yajjuhoshi vadadasi yat yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurusha madarpanam shubha palairevam mokshase karma bandhanaihi. He tells Arjuna, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever sacrifices you perform, whatever you give by way of charity, whatever austerities you engage yourself in, do it as an offering to me. By doing so, you will be liberated from the bonds of the action that result in good or evil results. In this way, actions done but without any desire for results lead to purification of the mind. Chittasya shuddhaye karma in Viveka Chudamani. Yoginaha karma kurvanti sangam tyaktvatma shuddhaye in Bhagavad Gita. As the mind sheds its impurities and gets pure, God's grace slowly reveals itself like the full moon emerging from behind the clouds. The kindly Lord arranges for him to come into contact with noble souls like sadhus or saints. Our Shastras describe them as the messengers of God. They move around the world telling people about the weaknesses of the life one normally leads and explaining the need for treading the spiritual path. They do this without any expectations. They have found the source of happiness. They have the noble desire that others too should take to the spiritual path and find everlasting happiness. Sri Shankaracharya says this: Shanta Mahanto Nivasanti Santaha Vasantavalloka Hitam Charantaha Tirna Swayam Bhima Bhavarnavam Jana Nahetu Nanyanapi Tarayantaha, in Viveka Chudamani. We normally will not be able to identify a saint because he will look like anyone else and will shun publicity and crowds. It is only God's grace that can lead to a meeting with a Mahatma and make us listen to his words. Thus, a human birth is a rarity in the first place, and rarer still is meeting with a saintly person. King Nimi says this when he gets a chance to meet the 9 yogis in Srimad Bhagavatam. Durlabho manusho deho dehinam kshanabhanguraha tathapi durlabham manye vaikuntha priyadarshanam. As the minds of saints are imbued with devotion, they take delight in talking about the Lord, who is none other than their inner self, and not about mundane matters. Machchitta madgata prana bodhayantaha parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha, in Bhagavad Gita. The words of such God-intoxicated devotees have great power. They go to the heart and so can work wonders. As one comes into contact with them and listens to their nectar-like words, they strengthen the devotion. The mind slowly turns away from the world and towards the Lord. The worldly attractions and worries gradually lose their hold. Mind becomes calm and peaceful. It acquires qualities required for spiritual progress. These qualities are said to be 4 in number and are known in the Vedantic parlance as sadhana chatushtayam, or 4 means of attainment. They are described in the texts like Viveka Chudamani and Tattvabodha. They are more elaborately described by Krishna in chapter 16 of Bhagavad Gita. He calls them as Daivi Sampat, or divine qualities. They are necessarily to be acquired by one stepping on to the path of liberation. Daivi Sampad Vimokshaya, says Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. It is difficult to acquire these virtues by practice, but one need not despair and refrain from making any attempt in this direction. Our Shastras are aware of this problem and provide an attractive solution to the seemingly difficult problem. They say that one who worships the Lord regularly and practices devotion to Him gets over the difficulties with His grace and acquires the qualifications as byproducts. He will therefore progress without much effort in the spiritual path. Krishna makes this assurance in Bhagavad Gita. Bhaktya mamabhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattvataha tato mam tattvato jnatva vishate tadanantaram. And again in Bhagavad Gita, Macchittaha sarva durgani matprasadat tarishyati. The easiest method of worship, or listening to His glories as described in stotras, puranas, etc., or chanting stotras or repeating His names by way of doing japa. That is why in the introduction to Vishnu Sahasranama, we find Yudhishthira asking Bhishma for a simple method that will give one freedom from samsara. Kim japan muchyate jantuhu janma samsara bandhanat. Bhishma answers that the best and also the simplest method to tide over all kinds of sorrows, including samsara, is reciting the hymns that sing the praise of Lord. Lokadhyaksham stuvan nityam sarvadhukkati go bhavet. And yeshame sarvadharmanam dharmodi katamo mataha yadbhaktya pundarikaksham stavairar chainnaras sada. Sri Shankaracharya, in his commentary to the above line, explains why Bhishma said this as the best method. He says, Himsadi Purushantara Dravyantara Deshakaladi Niyamanapekshatvam Adhikyo Karanam. That is, this method does not involve causing injury to other beings as animal sacrifices, etc., does not require help from another person or money or depend on a particular time as Ekadashi or Amavasya to travel to holy places such as Kashi or Rameshwaram. It can be practiced by anyone, irrespective of age, sex, status in society, etc. The sage Narada emphasizes the importance when he told Sri Vyasa that reciting the hymns which enumerate the virtues of the Lord is the abiding purpose of doing austere penances, rituals, recitations of Vedas, etc. Idam hi pumsas tapasaha shrutasya va swishtasya suktasya cha buddhi dattayoho avichyitorthaha kavibihi nirupito yaduttama sloka gunanuvarnanam in Srimad Bhagavatam. The reason is, by practicing devotion to God, one gets the four qualifications necessary to progress on the spiritual path that culminates in wisdom or jnanam as byproducts. Sri Shankaracharya says this in his Aparokshanubhuti. Swavarnashramadharmena tapasa haritoshanat sadhanam prabhavet pumsam vairagyadi chatushtayam. Sri Bhagavatam also says this. Vasudeve bhagavati bhakti yogaha prayojitaha janayatyasha vairagyam jnanam cha yadahaitukam. Thus, it is necessary to perform our prescribed duties and in addition make listening to and reciting stotras an essential part of our daily routine to intensify devotion. The scriptures contain hymns that narrate the qualities of God with name and form. Sri Rudram is a well-known example of a Vedic hymn. The Kaivalyopanishad says that reciting Sri Rudram will purify one of all sins. Yaha shatarudriyamadhite so agniputo bhavati suropanat puto bhavati brahmahatyat puto bhavati krityat puto bhavati tasmad aviktamashrito bhavati. In addition, we have hymns in Puranas. Our acharyas and other devotees have also contributed many hymns. The recital of such hymns is the easiest and the best method of worshipping Him and acquire purity of mind by purging it of all sins. Because of these reasons, the Lord has the name Punyaha Evam Smaranati Kurvatam Sarvesham Punyam Karotiti Punyaha, Vishnu Sahasranamam. Thus, reciting hymns or just listening to them is eminently suitable for people in this modern age as they are pressed for time. To summarize the above, we should first realize that human birth is an invaluable asset. Our scriptures say that one gets it after many births as other beings, as birds, beasts, plants, etc. depending on our karma stock. So, we should grab the opportunity with both hands and work assiduously for liberation. If we fail to do so, then the loss is immense since we do not know what our next or subsequent births will be and when we will get another birth as a human being again and will be able to work our way up. At this point, there may be an argument. One may say that he will do lot of good karmas, earn plenty of merit or punyam, and as a result gain birth in higher worlds. This may be in the world of gods such as Indra, and maybe even in that of Lord Brahma, the creator. There one can have a great time, full of enjoyment, and also work for liberation in such a wonderful environment. This is not a wise argument, says our Acharyas. The Upanishad says that the vision of the self can be had clearly in the mind as in a mirror, only in this world. It cannot be clearly had in the world of Gandharvas, Mains, and gods like Indra. These worlds are meant for enjoyment of pleasures got as a result of many good karmas. The mind that is behind the senses will, therefore, be pulled in many directions. The image of the self will be consequently scattered like the reflection in the surface of water that is agitated by the wind and so not clear. One will be unable to concentrate on the spiritual progress. Katha Upanishad यथा दर्शे तथात्मनि यथा स्वप्ने तथा पितृलोके यथाप्सु परीव ददृशे तथा गंधर्वलोके छाया तपयोरिव ब्रह्मलोके. If one misses the chance to attain liberation in this world, then he can get a chance to get vision of the self clearly only in the Brahmaloka. But that world is the highest one and is very difficult to attain. It can be reached only by numerous special kinds of rites and meditation. Therefore, one should leave no stone unturned to attain liberation in this world itself. Krishna tells Uddhava that sense enjoyments can be had in any body, but realization can be had only with the human body. So, keeping in the mind the fact that the human body is fragile, one should make haste and strive for liberation here itself. In Srimad Bhagavatam, Labdhva Sudarlabham Idam Bahusan Bhavante Manishyamarthadamanitya Mapiha Dhiraha Turnam Yatetana Patedad Anumrityu Yavan Nishreyasaya Vishayaha Kalu Sarvataha Syat. Sri Shankaracharya, in his commentary to the verse quoted from Katha Upanishad, makes a subtle observation. The Upanishad says that the vision of the self may be had distinctly as in a mirror in our intellect in this world. The idea, he says, is that reflection will be distinct in a mirror only when it is spotlessly clear. Similarly, the mind, in order to be able to reflect the self clearly, should be first made absolutely clear by performance of the prescribed duties, prayers, meditation, etc. Swabuddhau adarshavan nirmala bhutan viviktamatmano darshanam bhavatityarthaha. Then, with the guidance of a guru and following his instructions, one can progress towards liberation. My dear viewers, you may be wondering why I have gone through all this Vedanta philosophy and what connection this has with Narayana Hrudayam. Yes, there is a connection. There is a reason for it. And it is this. All this target of every human being can be achieved just by reciting Narayana Hrudayam, Lakshmi Hrudayam, and Narayana Hrudayam combination with faith and devotion. Faith and devotion comes with practice or the abhyasa. By making it a practice to regularly recite, hear, or view this video, you will get the faith, the devotion, and concentration, and in the end, you will achieve the one target of every human being, and that is moksha or relief from the cycle of birth and death. Now, a few words about Narayana Hrudayam itself, and I will complete this introduction. Narayana Hrudayam and Lakshmi Hrudayam, as said before, form a pair of very valuable and sacred hymns. Narayana Hrudayam is the shorter one, containing 37 verses. Lakshmi Hrudayam is much longer and contains 108 verses. The word Hrudayam is popularly taken to mean as the heart. The word is also used to mean secret, true, or divine knowledge. Being hymns found in the Veda, the Narayana Hrudayam and Lakshmi Hrudayam stotras are highly efficacious. They are sanctifying, as was said of Sri Rudram earlier. They also contain recondite Vedantic truths which may be found in the Upanishads, Puranas, Bhagavad Gita, etc. These truths are also to be seen in other stotras and in the hymns of later acharyas. Lakshmi Hrudayake stotre sarvam anyat prakashitam in Narayana Hrudayam. So, to describe them as Hrudayam is very apt. They are therefore very precious. For these reasons, they are considered very sacred and therefore secret, not to be easily given out. Gopyametat sada kuryat na sarvatra prakashayet, says Narayana Hrudayam in its later part. Because of this restriction, these stotras were handed down from a worthy guru to deserving disciples only. They were not freely available like Vishnu Sahasranamam. Only some noteworthy features of this stotram are mentioned in this brief introduction. The viewer is requested to view comments given in the Lakshmi Hrudayam also, which has been uploaded in the YouTube, as these two stotras are linked. Narayana Hrudayam stotram contains 16 verses in the beginning that narrate the glory of the Lord. Verses 1 and 2 describe the Lord with form. This is suitable for meditation. This form is to be retained in the mind when reciting the Narayana Hrudayam. But there is another form of the Lord which needs to be known. This is the form that Krishna discusses in chapter 7 of Bhagavad Gita. The Lord says he has two aspects. The superior one has no attributes. It is the very soul of all beings and sustains the universe. The other, namely the inferior aspect, is divided into 8 categories, and from that the universe of names and forms evolves. This is said to be inferior aspect since people get snared in the names and forms and overlook the Lord behind them who sustain the universe. A familiar example is that we go to a theater and watch a movie. We get absorbed in the movie and forget to notice the screen. It is the screen that is behind the movie and sustains it, but this fact is overlooked. Similarly, we are absorbed in the world of names and forms and fail to notice the Lord who hears all these names and forms. They thus get caught in samsara. This aspect is known as Prakriti or Maya. Krishna says that his Maya is very powerful and difficult to cross over without his grace. Daivi Hesha Gunamayi Mama Maya Duratyaya Mameva Ye Prapadhyante Mayam Yesham Tarantite. Bhagavad Gita. The Supreme Being, known as Brahman, when associated with Maya, is known as Ishvara or Maheshwara and becomes the cause of the universe through the agency of Maya. Maya tu Prakritim Vidyan Mayinam cha Maheshwaram, says Shvetaswataropanishad. Everything is born of Prakriti. Maya in Sanskrit is of feminine gender. So it is spoken of as the consort of the Lord. Mother Goddess or Lalita, Lakshmi, etc. Thus, though they are spoken as two items, they are indeed one indivisible Brahman only. Sri Shankaracharya says this in his Saundarya Lahari. Gira Mahur Devi Drihnagrihini Magamavido Harehe Patnim Padmam Harasahachari Madri Tanayam Turiya Kapitvam Duridigama Nissima Mahima Mahamaya Vishwam Brahmayasi Parabrahma Mahishi. He says that wise people who are well read in the scriptures say that you are the Saraswati or consort of Brahma, the creator. Again they say you are Lakshmi, the consort of Hari, and also you are Parvati, consort of Shiva. You are beyond the three and are the limitless one who is very difficult to reach. You are the Maya who makes the entire universe go round and round and round. Thus, Ishwar and Maya are inseparable and are known as the parents of the universe. This concept is depicted in our Shastras as Ardhanarishwara, in whom both Shiva and Parvati share half of one body. The poet Kalidasa says this in invocatory verse to his immortal classic Raghuvamsham as follows. Vagarthaviva samprukto Vagartha Pratipathaye Jagata Pitarau Vande Parvati Parameshwarau. He salutes Parvati and Parameshwara, who are the parents of the universe and who are inseparably united like the speech and its sense. Prakriti or Maya, named variously as Parvati or Lakshmi, is creative power of the Lord. He indeed is the causeless cause of everything that are the products or effects. It is to be noted that the properties of the cause will be there in the products. Thus, ornaments made of gold will have the properties of gold. Gold has no form, but the ornaments are many and have different forms and names. Same is the case with vessels made of clay and so on. In the same way, Lord is the cause of everything. The visible universe contains numerous items, right from Brahma the creator to insignificant insects and inanimate things. But they are all manifestations of the Lord only. But they all bear different forms and names. This is brought out in the verse number 3 to 18. These verses say that there is nothing apart from him and all were his manifestations only. For this reason, these verses are very, very significant. The words used herein will sound familiar since they are the same as the verses in Narayana Suktam said along with Purusha Suktam. The verses are Vishwam Narayanam Devam Aksharam Paramam Padam Vishwataha Paraman Nityam Vishwam Narayana Gum Harim. Vishwamevedam Purushastad Vishwamupajivati Patim Vishwasyatmeshwaram Shashwatam Shivamachyutam Narayanam Mahajneyam Vishwatmanam Parayanam Narayana Paro Jyotiratma Narayana Paraha Narayana Param Brahma Tattvam Narayana Paraha Narayana Parodhyata Dhyanam Narayana Paraha Yacha Kinchit Jagat Sarvam Drishyate Shriyate Piva Antarbahishcha Tatsarvam Vyapya Narayana Stitaha. These verses are eminently suitable for meditating on the Lord, who is described as being the cause of the universe. From him only even the creator Brahma and other gods were born. He is everything. There is none greater than him. He is the goal, and he is the one who can confer the supreme goal of moksha and other goals spoken of earlier. So, he is the one to be meditated upon. These verses are followed by 10 verses by which one surrenders to the Lord and seeks his grace. The final part says that this stotram is to be recited first, to be followed by the recital of Lakshmi Hrudayam, and again the recital of this stotram. This is not to be recited separately as a single piece. This is to stress the fact that Lord Narayana and Lakshmi are indeed one, though spoken of as two different deities. It will be evident from what is said here that both Narayana Hrudayam and Lakshmi Hrudayam are valuable hymns and like veritable mines of precious gems. An interested reader will be able to find more gems if he digs deep into them. The greater benefit will be that by reciting them regularly, one will develop devotion to divine couple Lord Narayana and Goddess Lakshmi and reap their abundant grace. Om Tat Sat.